Did I ever watch? I never read the book series, no. But I did watch that show about that. The Magicians. I don't think I finished the show. I think I remember watching the first two seasons with Chris. It was around the time season three, I think, was airing, and we watched the first two seasons, and then we just got busy with life and just it dropped to the side. And I never finished. I never went back and picked it up. But I did watch the first couple of seasons of Magicians. It was good. A lot of my favorite Canadian actors made appearances in that, from like Battlestar Galactica and there's a lot of good Canadian science fiction television that comes out. Like a lot of really good science fiction television comes out of Canadian um, sci-fi channels. Some really good stuff. I'd say probably if I went back and dug through all the shows I've watched over the past 15 years, probably 90% of the sci-fi productions are Vancouver based, like Canadian based shows. And so you see the same actors showing up consistently throughout. Like it's all the guys who are like they have cameos in Hollywood films, but they have steady jobs as secondary actors in television productions in Canadian space. And I remember watching an interview one time. They were talking about the guys were like, on a steady, it's a pretty steady gig. You make between $350 to $500 a day in union wages, and they keep you busy. But it's like you might be on five sets in a day, so it's your job is to just you're constantly switching roles, so you never get the chance to be like the lead in something. Um, but you might have a pretty significant secondary part. I remember watching. It was the show. I think it was called Sanctuary. It was Amanda Tapping right after she came off of Stargate SG-1 and Atlantis. She went and executive produced this show. I could swear it was called Sanctuary. Um, and it was a super cool sci-fi show where she was like the head of this organization that took care of monsters. And then as the mythology of the show developed, and it had its own unique mythology, as the mythology of the show um, unfolds, you find out that like the reason some of these people have extended lifespans is because they were all experimenting with vampire juice years ago, and there's good guys and bad guys amongst them, and then there's the monster element, and there's just a really cool. It was just a really fun show. It didn't have like cutting edge special effects. It had pretty decent for its time like green screen effects. They did a lot of green screen with that show. Um, but it was really good, and I watched that one all the way to its finish. And there were a ton of like Christopher Heidecken, the bald guy. God, he was in that. He was in he played like the Dr. Jekyll, if I remember correctly. But then like he turned up later in probably like 20 shows I've seen over the years. But the one I really remember him from is as the Swede in God, that Western that I've seen a couple of times with Anson Mount, and I'm blanking on the name of it right. Hell on Wheels and Common. If you have not watched Hell on Wheels yet, Hell on Wheels is an amazing show. It's a Western about the creation of basically the two railways that cross North America, and but it's got a ton of amazing like Canadian day job actors in it with and it's just but it's a really cool Western film. And that's what I watched Anson Mount in before he became the captain in Star Trek. So it was really cool seeing him transition because I was like, well, I fucking love Star Trek, and Anson Mount was a badass in Hell on Wheels. So it was like a chain of events of watching Sanctuary to Hell on Wheels to Star Trek. Um, but there's a bunch of really cool productions. Yeah, I think it was called Sanctuary. Yeah. It was really really good. Akasar says I've been practically begging Mel to watch the new first Dune movie. I've seen it 4 times in a month, and she doesn't get it. Chris watched it with me about 3 months ago. She enjoys it. She watched the Sci-Fi Channel version with me twice. The first time when we were dating, it was like, "Hey, do you want to watch this?" It was more of just a thing where we were kind of watching it together, but we were dating, so Um, then later on, we watched it together after we'd been married for a while, and that one was one I was going to go back and rewatch it, and she was like, "Well, I really liked that. Can I accompany you?" And I was like, "Yeah, you could absolutely watch this with me if you want." Um, and I really, really, really like the Sci-Fi Channel version of Dune. It's really, really, really good. The follow-up is tricky because they attempt Children of Dune and Dune Messiah in a follow-up miniseries, but it's pretty well done. Not as impactful as the first sci-fi miniseries. Um, that one is I can't remember how many parts it was split into, but it was a multi-part miniseries event, and it was just really really good. Um, and speaking of bit part actors in like Canadian shows, the Scottish actor who plays Paul Atreides in the Sci-Fi Channel version, it was weird because I've seen him. He's a Scottish actor, and he's popped up in tons of like little BBC productions over the years and projects from like Scotland, Ireland, and the UK. That's just where he lives and works, and he's had a pretty steady career in theater as well. I've seen him in a lot of different shows over the years, but I can't wait to. I have to wait for season 2 because season 2. Sorry, I have to wait for the second film because there's no theater near where I live. I think it's like up in the city. It's 2.5 hours away. I'm not gonna go 2.5 hours to see a film, so I'm just waiting for it to come out in home media. And as soon as I can get a hold of it digitally, I will be watching it, and I will have Chris watch it with me, and then I will probably sit there and at some point go back and watch them back to back because that'll essentially cover the first book. Um, it's gonna be good. I might even, we might even rewatch the first one before we watch the second one. You know, depending on when that comes out. Anyway, he was great as Pike. He was awesome.